Hey folks, this podcast is brought to you by King Arthur Capital Group. Fund your fight camp, showing fighters how to leverage credit and capital so they can treat their career like a business. Love sharing that information with as many people out there in the combat sports world as possible. So, um, if you're looking to treat your career a little bit more like a business, still, and I know that David McElroy is kind of scaling back his marketing of this. He actually sent me a message that I didn't get to read yet today. I should probably check that. But he says, like, if people are still serious about like managing, their finances and, funding their fight camps and whatnot, like, absolutely hit him up at King Arthur at Fund Your Fight Camp. I should probably read the message now that I think about it. Let's see here. Okay. Message from David McElroy. He has scrapped Fund Your Fight Camp entirely as of now. So disregard that first pair. That's why you read the messages before you start doing that. Oh, that's interesting. All right, so check out Fight Club. All right, check out Fight Club Crate. Mystery fight gear, knockout prices, undisputed value, combat sports boxes delivered monthly. Use my promo code TAPTHAT15 at Fight Club Crate for 15% off of your first purchase. Follow those folks on Instagram at Fight Club Crate. Very cool stuff. They're adding new things to their repertoire all the time from cool, different companies and services and whatnot. So finally, that is a winner of a gift idea for the combat connoisseur in your life. And Substats is the analytics and intelligence platform for competitive grappling. Now that I think about it, they sent me a message earlier too. What's up? Oh, okay, never mind. He sent me something really cool. So, anyway, that's exactly why you should check out Substats.app and Substats on Instagram at Substats. Analytics and intelligence platform for competitive grappling, giving promoters, leagues, and commentators the data they've never had with matchmaking tools, athlete profiles, event breakdowns, and match analysis powered by computer vision. If you compete, if you promote, you just love competitive grappling, check them out at substats.app. If you're in a competitive grappling, Substats is building the analytics layer the sport has been missing with athlete profiles, event intelligence, and match breakdowns. Use my promo code TAPTHAT for 10% of your initial purchase with Substats. Abraham is always sending, posting cool stuff, sending cool, he just showed me like something that they're working on over there, and it's like, God, he really has done a lot of cool stuff with that. So, what's up, everybody? Brady Grove bringing you another episode of Tap That. And after my move into this new house and everything being settled, one, I think I'm digging the just microphone filter thing going on here, except for, without the need for the headphones and the soundboard. But finally, here to give some picks again. Great week of combat sports. One Samurai is going down like a handful of hours. I'm doing this as PFL. I think is reaching its conclusion, and I posted my PFL bets on Instagram. They were doing pretty good. Yakshimirov lost. That's a bummer, but there's Dalton Ross left. But a couple of things of I think the biggest upset I've seen so far on the card was Bruno Capoloza beating Valentin Moldavsky. So but yeah, there's Zuffa Boxing this week. There's also MVPW. I put some bets on Instagram for those as well. The UFC tomorrow in like regular time because it's going to be in the Apex in Vegas. Then you've got RIZIN 54, I think like on a Tuesday, like at normal RIZIN hours. RIZIN hours. That sounds like President RIZIN hours. And then the Contender Series week 1 is this upcoming Tuesday. That's the big deal. And then the Ultimate Fighter continues. I won't give any spoilers just because just go watch it. But I think it's pretty obvious the fact that Gigi Canuto was signed to fight on the Contender Series that she that kind of gives away what happened in that episode. So for UFC Fight Night, and I'm gonna give some other I'm gonna give some other thoughts. Here's what I wanted to talk about. Was PFL, the news of the PFL merger with MVP, and the thing is, it's it's too easy to make fun of it, and it's too easy to also say oh, it's got to be a good thing for PFL because it just seems like a lot of more money behind it. Um, Maybe it positions them better for better TV and streaming deals and whatnot. I I just don't know what the interest is out there for people with PFL unless this merger actually does some of the cool things that we've hoped that some of PFL's been. The thing is, from the beginning, PFL has had some really cool ideas, and a lot of them fell so flat because of just a lack of execution. A lot of what Francis's involvement was disappointing. I kind of wish that we had got. I mean, I respect the hell out of Clarissa Shields for stepping in there and fighting in those circumstances. Those were not glamorous fights, and she didn't win all of them. But credit to her for actually doing that. That's very exciting. I wish we could see more of the top pound for pound women's boxers get involved in MMA. But PFL's had a lot of really good ideas that just fall short, and the same problem remains with because they're a little they of all the promotions that have been the one of the between them, Pride, Strikeforce, between those things, and even when Bellator was at its height, PFL is the one with the least amount of individual unique character, and I think that so much of that just has to do with it's on ESPN, and it was really cool when they had the tournament format. I actually I liked that aspect of it. They could boast that they had the best fighter in the world at a weight class when Kayla Harrison was still there. But just a lot of ideas have just suffered from a lack of execution, and to go it was the same problem with Bellator, where it's one thing when the general public doesn't necessarily know who you are, but when people who are dedicated MMA fans who love to watch MMA outside of the UFC, when those people who enjoy your product get caught by surprise when you're having an event at a certain point, that is when you're really doing something wrong in the promotion and marketing in one way or another. I don't know who to criticize for that necessarily, but it's the same problem that Bellator had. And I think that the merger with MVP could be a very fun idea. It is a fun idea, but whether anything comes of it, that remains to be seen. And I'll believe it when I see it, I think, is always the kind of the philosophy with PFL when something exciting gets announced. And the other point, I saw this the other day, and it struck the thought of there was some signing of some 3-1 strawweight prospect to the PFL, and it's it's when you see that, my first thought is there's so many strawweight prospects, and that's a division that can be it is just as hard to market as some of the other ones to people. But it's I kept thinking why PFL dedicating any amount of time to strawweight when so many of the top prospects are going in one particular direction at strawweight. And then it's why does PFL not take more of a chance and go with weight classes that are not offered in the UFC? Would it really be that, I mean, even to do what Canada does and just have those different 165 pound, kind of catch weighty weight classes, just so that you could do atom weight, you could do men's cruiserweight, and then that's something that sets you apart, and you get different fighters looking for different things because of that. If you did atom weight, and put atom weight on a stage, immediately you become a huge destination that a lot of the top atom weights would want to go to. So it just these are problems for PFL, and history tells us that like they probably won't get fixed. But like that's what makes the MVP merger interesting is like if executed, this could be a big thing. But you're just skeptical that something will come from it. But it's very interesting. I mean, what MVP has done with the boxing events they put on, can't knock that. And then the one MMA event, was that had a lot of stars that were a part of it, and that's an unrealistic expectation to like the 10th degree. Talking about like putting on regular MMA events, but it's something. It could be something, but you take it with like 5 grains of salt because you know how things like this tend to work out for other promotions. History's not kind to it. So with that, let's talk about UFC Fight Night. Starting Saturday at 5 p.m. There are 12 fights on the card. All right, that's reasonable. And the first one is GG. Right, it wasn't for the contender series. It was this card, Gigi Canuto against Carol Foro. Now, the funny, I didn't even get to look at this one beforehand. I don't have any bet down on it. I put all my UFC bets on Instagram as well. So Foro is 9-1, and she's the minus 235 favorite. So the Gigi Canuto is coming in, already fighting an uphill battle after the Ultimate Fighter. And Foro, has a win in UAE Warrior, 2 wins in UAE Warriors, against opponents with winning records. She was a champion in Jungle Fight. She beat Chanel Dyer on the Contender Series back in September, and Chanel Dyer, that was, I think Chanel Dyer was the favorite. In here, you can check. Yeah, Fora went into that plus 145 underdog, and Chanel Dyer is still looked at as like, someone who's gonna be a rising prospect, in years to come and whatnot. So that was an impressive win. GG, 7-1 as a pro. 5 of those wins are by submission. And most recently of official fights, she's been in LFA her entire professional career. And I mean, one professional loss, and it was to Natasha Kuziatina, who went on to, that was for the interim belt at LFA. I mean, that's her only professional loss. So really, like, I mean, I appreciate what we saw from Foro against Chanel Dyer. But these are still 2 young fighters, young in their professional career. Gigi's 23 years old, and she gets this opportunity. I don't know what this. I would love to see historical statistics on people that are in exactly Gigi's position, following the Ultimate Fighter. But like what Gigi's accomplished in her professional career, with 1 loss in a title fight for LFA, otherwise spending her whole pro career in LFA and being unscathed besides that fight. Obviously, like Forrest had a good professional career as well, but like with Gigi, I think that like having her plus 195 is a little like in this strawweight fight to start a fight night card when professional resumes are that comparable and you're talking about a 23-year-old coming off a good learning experience who's probably improving on a daily basis, and for a 29 years old, that rate of improvement probably not going to be, as steep. So I like GG there, plus 195. Yeah. I'm probably be rooting for her too, just because you like seeing, people. I like seeing people from the Ultimate Fighter get opportunities. Period. Now that takes us to the next fight, a women's flyweight matchup between Juliana Miller and Ravina Oliveira. And Juliana Miller is the minus 305 favorite. This is where I wish I had a soundboard because I would use it there. Ravina Oliveira, the plus 249 underdog. Juliana Miller, 4-4 as a pro. Very good grappler. 1-1 in Invicta, 2-3 in the UFC. And I mean, the thing, she is a good grappler, and that win against Ivana Petrovic was a real career saver for her, at least up to this point. Got some good wins on the Ultimate Fighter. That's how she ended up winning the Ultimate Fighter. In hindsight, I had picked Brogan Walker in that finale. I just thought she was, I thought she was the better, the more well-rounded of the two, and I guess she was, but was in real trouble there on the ground for so long. But in hindsight, that win did not age well. And, the losses to Carly Judas and Juana Santos, that's not like it, but it's that Juliana Miller did not really pass the eye test in those fights. Did not look competitive. Like, those were rough losses. And to Veronica Hardy, it just didn't look like she'd be hanging around for too much longer. I would almost compare it to like Zach Pauga, kind of like in how the optics had, even though Zach Pauga was the runner up, but then you got Ravina Oliveira, all right, who is 7-4-1 as a pro. Things have not gone well in the UFC. She's 0-3, and her professional resume was extremely limited, up until she was actually in the UFC. Lost to Tainara Lisboa, Stephanie Luciano, and Chanel Dyer. Honestly, that, like, what did I say? Yeah, she's the plus 249 underdog. I cannot not take the opposite side in a fight where Juliana Miller is the minus 300 favorite. And like, Ravina Oliveira has not lost to bad fighters in the UFC, not that bad. But Luciano and Chanel Dyer, like, those aren't as bad losses, and Juliana Miller has just looked bad in some of those losses. But I really like Juliana Miller, and I am rooting for her to, like, I would like for her to come out of this fight looking like she was supposed to be a minus 300 favorite. But I think that there's just too good a chance that, like, it's just not a good night and she loses, and it might not even be that exciting of a fight, or whatever. But Ravina Oliveira at plus 249, I would say between Gigi and Ravina Oliveira in these first two fights, I would be quite surprised if not one of those underdogs win. Next up, Gianni Vasquez. Did they change Miles John's opponent? They sure did. Yeah, so Miles Johns was supposed to fight Jesse Rosas, and now he's fighting Gianni Vasquez. I think that fight got rebooked twice. Oh, God. So, let's see. Yeah, Miles Johns is minus 170. Gianni Vasquez, the plus 149 underdog. I swear that those were the same odds as Jesse Rosas, or at least it was in some places. So let's learn a little about Gianni Vasquez. Yeah, let's see. 14-5-1, 32 years old. 0-1 in the UFC, 1-0 in the LFA, right? The one fight against Javid Basharat, lost by unanimous decision. Who didn't? A lot of time in UNF, right? I remember this dude, Edgar Chairez. That was his first and only professional. No, he had several. It's a long career, active career, and long. 2014 was his first pro fight. Oh, I think very much so. Very much so. I think that Gianni Vasquez is actually a better. I think that's an easier fight for Miles Johnson, especially in these circumstances. Like, one thing I would say about Miles Johns is he is a consistent professional, and even in so many fights that he's lost, or a couple of the recent fights that he lost, Felipe Lima and G Matsumoto, like the G Matsumoto fight was so close, and his wins can be really close too. He's won a lot of fights by 29-28 decisions, but like he's fought some good fighters over the years, and not necessarily necessarily wins against the dirt favorite, but like there's just isn't little in the Miles Jones proven. I think like this late replacement situation is going to be more stress or not as good for Johnny Vasquez. I think Miles Jones is going to go out and do exactly what he was going to do anyway. Um, so, and I'm actually, I think, less impressed with Johnny Vasquez's professional resume than I am Jesse Rosas. So, yeah, I think like Johnny Vasquez, let's see. Yeah, I think like the most likely way, like the same thing that I bet with Miles Johns earlier when he was fighting Rosas still is like Miles Johns money line, sure, minus 170, and like that's a nice like number to be able to put in a parlay for this level of confidence. And then Miles Johns by decision, I think was like plus 140 or something. So give me that all day in this circumstance. Let's see. Next up, we've got Manuel Sosa against Richie Miranda. This is a tough one because I do think Richie Miranda is getting slept on a little. Richie Miranda is the plus 260 underdog. Sosa the minus 320 favorite. Um, let's see. Let's talk about Richie Miranda first. Yeah, Richie Miranda 13-1 as a pro, and considering that he has 10-1, 10-1 in LFA, and the champion of their lightweight division who has defended that belt multiple times. Fought Keegan Agnew, beat Macomb Mendonca. Um, his only career loss is a split decision in LFA 157, where he was the minus 205 favorite against Keegan Gingrich. And Keegan Gingrich, very respectable name, and in that world too. He went over Elijah Harris, Devin Dixon. Richie Miranda has been like a real monster in LFA, in LFA, and to have 11 fights in LFA and professionally be 13-1 is insanity. He's a dog. Um, Now Sousa's scary in his own right, in a different 29 years old, and I love this about Sousa. 1-1 in Bellator, 1-0 in the UFC, 1-0 in LFA, and 1-0 in PFL. Touching all the bases, love to see it. And he was a champion at SFT, won their vacant lightweight belt back in July 2021. Won on PFL Challenger Series. All these opponents have good records too. His only professional loss is to Archie Colgan. And in his UFC debut, after winning on the Contender Series by knockout, was a knockout of Balaji. It's crazy because, like, if Richie Miranda was an underdog like this to, like, so many other people, I'd smash it. But, like, Miranda's a dog, and I have so much respect for what he has accomplished as a pro. But, like, the same goes for Sousa, and he just seems like a monster. And so I see, I can defend Sousa like at this number, putting that in a parlay. I think that you would be sweating that out, and I did that a couple of times, maybe, or maybe just once, because this is the one that I struggle with the most over the week. But like Richie Miranda, for what he's accomplished in his pro career, absolutely. But plus 260, I cannot knock that money line. And I'm kind of talking myself into it a little bit more. I don't have much action on this fight. This is a tough one to call. But Richie Miranda, 13-1, 11 fights in LFA, and defending an LFA belt twice. That's very impressive. Next up, Jose Montana against Louis Sutherland at heavyweight. So Louis Sutherland, the minus 210 favorite. I think I got him at like minus 160. That's crazy. I'll check here in a second. I'm interested. Hmm. Yeah, I'll never be. Let's see. Louis Sutherland minus 155 is what I got him at. Look at that. Now he's minus 210. You know, I'm a fan of Louis Sutherland. Now, he did not win any fans with his win over Taito Ivasa, but it kept him around a little longer. I just like the people that he's lost to, like Slim Trabelsi, Abraham Bobley. Like he's got wins over Alton Meeks, got wins over. He was the champion at Fight Star. It's a cool name. And what's the other dude? It's like on PFL or well, he also won the Levels Fight League Heavyweight Championship June of 2025. I love LFL. I was just watching like just random fights of theirs on YouTube yesterday. I love like they put on quality cards for sure, and because of where it is geographically located in the world, it's got an interesting flavor to it. But like the all like orange motif is cool. It really sets it apart. I commend anybody who's doing something that sets them apart, and like all that orange that's easy to remember. Making you the more recognizable you can make that brand, like that's like the Smurf turf at Boise State. That's very easy to remember who that is associated with. But Louis Sutherland, like, took a lot of heat. People were not high on him after those first two losses, but like, Walter Walker, for as many people as he has heel hooked in a row, that loss doesn't look. I mean, it was a calf slicer against Thomas Peterson, but you get it. Like he's done that to five, one, two, three, four, five people in a row. Um, just a crazy level of submission skill at heavyweight. But and then Brando Paris just knocks him out, and that dude just seems to be really really big and scary. That much is confirmed. He was what 5-1 as a pro going into that fight with like wins over a very limited pedigree of people, and then does it to Alicia Ellison, and then just knocked out Shamil just back in May. And Louis Sutherland, like, yeah, it was not pretty the way that he had to beat Tai Tuivasa. But in talking about Montana, 29 years old, and like, this is such a Brazilian heavyweight to be coming into this fight. So he's fought two opponents with more than a win. His first three fights as a pro, spanning from 2016 to 2021, the opponents were 0-0. Then he lost to 3-0 Richard Jacoby, March of 2022. Then wins over a 0-0 opponent, a 1-0 opponent, and then won the Curitiba Fight Pro Heavyweight Championship against 3-0 Bruno De Jesus. I mean, like, dude, maybe like this dude comes in and looks absolutely amazing and like submits or finishes Louis Sutherland in 30 seconds, and it's like, oh my god, who's it? Yeah, but like that level of competition, like when Louis Sutherland was minus 155, I jumped all over that. That you just like have no, how Louis Sutherland, looks against really good heavyweights, and those were losses, but like he didn't get knocked out by Tai Tuivasa either, even if Tai Tuivasa maybe shouldn't have been fighting. Louis Sutherland has faced a lot of really solid competition, and Montana just has not done anything close to that. So Louis Sutherland, when he was minus 155, I was all over that, and it doesn't really, I don't really think the method of victory mattered at that point. I think if I had to pick a method of victory in this circumstance, I'd probably say like by decision, knockout possible for Louis Sutherland. That's how a lot of this the beginning. Yeah, I would say like you're probably getting perhaps it's a little juicier at minus 155 down to minus 210. That's crazy. Um, let's see. I haven't done this yet. No. to go back to. I'm going to Bet Online where I couldn't find the props easier. There we go. All right. Louis Sutherland. To win by knockout is plus 175. By decision is plus 275. I'd probably go by decision actually plus 275. I think like after the way the last fight went, for Louis Sutherland, like you gotta like kind of earn back that like perception that you can like finish a heavyweight fight in 3 rounds. So plus 275 by decision, I think makes more sense to me. Next up, light heavyweight, Dayar Nurgazai against Bruno Lopez. I had a strong feeling about against Dayar. What are the odds here? Dayar minus 150. All right, don't forget about Dayar. Okay, this is important because he had that win on the Contender Series over Bartosz Zawick. He did beat Emiliano Sordi. Now, for a guy like from his geographic region, not very impressive records of opponents that he's beaten. The win over Emiliano Sordi, the thing is, like, Sordi's kind of had a bit of a bounce back since that point, but he was down bad for a period of time. Like, he had lost like a lot of fights in a row against like a declining level of competition, and Dayar after the Contender Series did not look good in the fight with Brinson Ribeiro or Uran Sadibaldiev. He was able to get the win against Rafael Tobias, but here's the thing. I remember talking about that fight distinctly because I bet on Dayar and that he was like the underdog plus 140. Because I remember thinking like, oh god, it's another Dayar fight because he did not look good in those 2 UFC losses. It really made you question, pretty much like all the professional wins he had up to that point. But the reason I went with him over Rafael Tobias was I looked at Rafael Tobias' professional resume. I was like, hold on, why is this guy the favorite though? Like, this has not been like anything particular. Like, I did not think it was, did not think that was justified. And for, you have to give Dayar the credit of like, those losses were in the UFC. And so I was like, why is Rafael Tobias the favorite? And, he ended up losing that decision. But don't forget who Dayar is, okay? Because Dayar is still Dayar, and he was still the guy that like looked that bad optically in those first 2 fights in the UFC. And I can definitely say more for Bruno Lopez. I mean, Bruno Lopez, 33 years old. He's on a 2-fight losing streak, but to Dustin Jacoby and Navajo Sterling. The other loss was to Brinson Ribeiro, who also beat Dayar. But professional, championship experience in LFA at light heavyweight. And, won on the Contender Series also with a knockout and beat Magomed Gadzhiyassimov in his UFC debut. I think that Bruno Lopez at plus 130. I might have gotten him at a better number than that, but or did I? There's no way I got him as a favorite. No, I don't even think it was ever that. But Bruno Lopez has lost to way better fighters in the UFC than Dayar has, and his professional resume is a lot more proven. I think has at his worst not looked as bad, and at his best looked better than Dayar. So gonna be Bruno Lopez plus 130 there. I don't care on method of victory, but history would probably say that like that would end in a knockout of Dayar. Excuse me. Next up, we got Steven Asplin against Guillermo Pat. Love that Steven Asplin is fighting again. Very interesting midsection that guy has. I don't know the story behind that, or if there's no story at all. Asplin 7-2 as a pro. Pat 6-1. Asplin is the minus 310 favorite. Pat the plus 252 underdog. Asplin, yeah, did he have surgery? It looks like stitches on his ribs. I just don't know. I'm sure there's been I'm sure there's a narrative to it that like people know about, but it just has escaped me. 6 wins as a pro that are by knockout. He was 4-1 in LFA. His only loss so far is to Vitor Petrino in the UFC, and the win over Sean Sharaf. But it beat that Gracio character on the Contender Series. And the only other pro loss was to Denzel Freeman by rear naked choke in his fourth professional fight. But another thing I love about Asplin, like he made the rounds with some of these other like heavyweights that were at a similar level in these other promotions. Like beat Billy Ray Valdez, beat Larry Gonzalez, who has been on this show. Gracio was one, and Anthony Garrett was his professional debut, who had 13 pro fights of experience at that point. Vitor Petrino has been better at heavyweight than I've anticipated. He's now beaten Austin Lane, Thomas Peterson, and Stephen Asplin all in a row. So I don't think that speaks, too badly about Steven Asplin. I think that there's still plenty of room for Steven Asplin to ascend here. But Pat, 32 years old, big dude, 6'6", 81-inch reach. These are going to be two tall fellas here at heavyweight. Coming off a majority decision loss to Thomas Peterson. Yeah, this is why, like, when I'm talking about Brazilian heavyweights, these guys come to mind where, the first 4 opponents of his pro career, 1-1 in Spartacus, 0-0 in Spartacus, 3-1 in Spartacus, 0-0 in Fight Music Show. FMS, I mean, it's a cool acronym, but Fight Music Show doesn't necessarily get me excited to watch fights. I'm more just now wondering about how the music is going to be incorporated. Even his one LFA fight was against 4-4 Mauricio Queiroz. And this is heavyweight, and you do have to take those records and placements of like, there's always a little bit of like the guy's fighting who he can fight. It can be hard to find fights at heavyweight. But Steven Asplin had tough fights at heavyweight, and he won them against good fighters. And the only 2 people he's lost to have been UFC level heavyweights. Alan Fry was not a particular, like, even in a UFC debut, I still like, Alan Fry, 28, 6 feet with long arms. He didn't have much of a professional resume before coming into that fight. I think Fry might have been the underdog. And I might have been on him just because it was like, dude, like, it's a flip of a coin between these two, between Fry and Pat. But against Thomas Peterson, like, losing by decision like that, I think that's going to be a problem against Steven Asplin. Like, I think Asplin is going to be an even bigger problem than Thomas Peterson would have been. So I think Asplin by knockout. Let's see here. Asplin by knockout is plus 110. It's the most likely of all the method of victory props, but Asplin by knockout makes a lot of sense. So do that. The minus 310 favorite by knockout plus 110. Now by decision is plus 175. But like, if I think there's the gap, like in the moments where Asplin is turning it on, like for what I did not necessarily like about Pat, I think if Asplin is able to get into a flow and really starts peppering him, that a knockout is very. I mean, that's how Asplin's gotten 6 of his 7 professional wins. It's not how Pat only has 1 pro loss and it was by decision, but he's fought Thomas Peterson, but he hasn't fought Steven Asplin yet. As dumb and obvious of logic as that is. Next up, 5 more fights. It's not that bad. I do want to talk about other things though. Trying to do that more. Ty Miller versus Billy Ray Golf at welterweight. Ty Miller's 7-0. Billy Ray Golf 9-4 as a professional. And let's see, Ty Miller is the minus 389 favorite. Billy Golf plus 310. I tend to agree with that. Like Billy Ray Golf at one point, like, I mean, 1-2 in the UFC, one of the Contender Series, but like, you know, this is a very much a New England guy. Super New Englandy. Where's he from, actually? God, I feel stupid if it's like Texas. Nope, Connecticut. That makes sense. So, because he was like a CES champion in 2022. That meant a little bit more. You know, he's been in like some Bellator, you know. How many Bellator fights? 2. He was 2-0 in Bellator. Lost to Trey Waters, lost to Ramiz Brahimaj in the UFC. Came in beating Yusaka Kinoshita with a body shot. And it is not, you know, he has not looked very good over those last 2 UFC fights. You know, I think like we might have seen like a ceiling for Billy Ray Golf. And this is like a terrible fight to try to get back on track with because Ty Miller, you know, with experience and wins in Cage Fury and in LFA, beat Jimmy Drago on the Contender Series as the minus 210 favorite, and then knocked out Adam Fugit at the start of this year. He's like quickly, you know, done on the Contender Series and in the UFC, like already enough to make me think that like a knockout of Billy Ray Golf is impending, because Billy Ray Golf did get finished by Ramiz Brahimaj. He got submitted. So like I yeah, I think like Ty Miller by knockout is actually the way to go. Yeah, it's been a toss up for Miller like over his career, but I think Billy Ray Golf is going to give him the opportunities to get knocked out. Miller by knockout is minus 115. I'm fine with that for a minus 389 favorite. I think that like he could really overwhelm Billy Ray Golf, and you know I think a finish is the most likely. I think that the book is right on that. Yeah, Ty Miller has looked like a problem already. That's at welterweight with a 77-inch reach, 6'2". Like that is a problem at welterweight. Billy Ray Golf is 5'10" with a 72-inch reach. And these are 2 young fighters. One born in 1998, one born in 2000. I mean, like a couple years ago, that felt a lot crazier. And now I forget that I'm just like 29. So that's not like prospect age anymore, unfortunately, unless you're a heavyweight. Next up, we got Amanda Lemos versus Alexa Thanera at strawweight, obviously. I'd say Amanda Lemos is the plus 215 underdog. Thanera, the minus 260 favorite. I always kind of want to get suckered into Amanda Lemos, but like I haven't had good feel, like, or maybe I did, but like the fights where she was an underdog again, like plenty of them were competitive, but still losses. And then Eisman Lucinda, like against that fight, or in that fight, there were 16 combined strikes, significant strikes landed, and a total of 4 takedowns. So I wouldn't love her for DFS really anymore. It's just crazy because like she's got to win against Mackenzie Dern. For the people that have wins over Mackenzie Dern, how quick do you call like on your ticket to get a shot at the title if she beats Jillian Robertson coming up? It's just so crazy. It's just wild that like we're having a strawweight fight between Mackenzie Dern and Jillian Robertson. I'm seriously not saying that to knock them. because I'm still excited for the fight. It's a title fight and it's cool. I, to this way, I would never have thought that Mackenzie Dern would be the champion, and I really never thought that Jillian Robertson would get a shot at the title. So this really is kind of a surreal title fight, and I think that it's possible that if a few people became like were at strawweight and fighting, then these two would immediately be like a pretty, you know, Jillian Robertson would be a lot farther from that picture, and Mackenzie Dern would have a very, very, very difficult problem keeping or regaining a belt. Anyway, Amanda Lemos has lost 3 of her last 4 fights. 4 of her last 6 dating back to the Zhang Weili fight. It's, she was born in 1987. It seems like her best fights are behind her, and it seems like, that gap is growing. And Nanara, born in 1995, 14-1 as a pro. She has wins over Molly McCann, over Loma, and against Bruna Brazil. She's looked really good, really well-rounded in those fights. This is just someone who it feels like it's going to be a lot, just too much for Amanda Lemos in each department. I think she would get outstruck. I think that she would have a hard time getting it, anything going in the grappling department. I always want to take Amanda Lemos because of her career history, and she's going to be a big test for Alexa Thenara. If Thenara is not ready, if there is anything that has been missed about her and that there should not be, if there's a lack of optimism, it'll become apparent after this fight. But I think Thenara is rightfully the favorite. I think Thenara by decision makes by far the most sense here. And that is -105. Not bad at all. Next up, we've got 3 fights left. Darren Elkins versus Yadier Dvalishvili at featherweight. Deval, I would think. This is a tough one too, because I think Yadier is the biggest favorite on the card, -820 against Darren Elkins. And this is after he's coming off the loss to Jordan Leavitt, where he was, the favorite again. The wins over Connor Matthews, over Isaac Dulgarian. I know that he had the win over Michael Aswell in Fury. So I Yadier. It's just like the Leavitt fight left a lot to be desired. Perhaps just an off night. Jordan Leavitt is very specifically good at some very key areas of mixed martial arts. Never been accused of being a well-rounded fighter, Jordan Leavitt, but Yadier lost to him in the way that people lose to Jordan Leavitt. That's what makes it a tough matchup for people, and for a guy like the younger Cuban Problem, that was a test, and you learn from it and move on. The Dulgarian win, that's nice. But Darren Elkins, born in 1984. This dude is 42 years old. 42 years old. Last fight was a knockout loss to Julian Erosa, UFC 314. He's actually won 2 of his last 3 fights. That dates back to October of 2023. Wins over TJ Brown and Daniel Pineda. A lot of fights in the UFC for Darren Elkins. 29-12 as a pro. In the UFC, he is 19-11. 19-11. Fought a lot of good fighters. It's been a really good run in the UFC since 2010. 16 years in the UFC. Won in his debut over Dwayne Ludwig. His second fight in the UFC was a submission loss to Charles Oliveira. His second loss in the UFC was to Chad Mendes. The third was to Jeremy Stevens. Very interesting track record for Darren Elkins, but and I do think that this is a tough bounce back spot for Yadier. How do you deal with that loss and the underwhelming way in which it happened? against a guy who's like been there as much as anybody has been there and done that in the UFC. So much pro experience, and but I think Darren Elkins is 42 years old. That is the reality of the situation, and you just don't continue to win at 42 unless you're a very, 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 very limited, special, unique brand of athlete. And I'm not so sure that Darren Elkins has 42-year-old magic, moving forward against a dangerous, up and comer like Yadier. So I would say Yadier just to win this inside the distance. Say, yeah, 6 of his 10 wins are inside the distance. So, for Yadier to do that, or you could like, where's the point spread? You can do Yadier to have the most significant strikes and wins inside the distance. At minus 175, or you can do Elkins most takedowns and wins by decision at plus 1600. That's fun. Spread. Yadier to cover minus 3.5 is minus 500. I kind of like the minus 175. Most significant strikes and wins inside the distance. Vegas must feel decent that one of those two maybe won't happen. With Elkins, I think that's probably the wins by decision part. Yeah, that's why it's plus 1600. So yeah, that's where I go with Yadier. It worries me when a guy coming off a loss to Jordan Leavitt is the biggest favorite on a card against a guy with 30 fights in the UFC. But I mean, Darren Elkins is 42, and coming off of getting finished. But winning 2 of his last 3, even since 2023, is quite impressive. Because he was still in his 40s when he won those. And we're now to the co-main event of the evening. This is again where I wish I had a soundboard. Without the soundboard and the headphones on so I can hear the soundboard. You know what I'm going to do before the co-main event here? I'm going to go get something to like munch on perhaps. And so while I'm doing that, I'm going to play the Tap That theme song.
5 rounds. Every
Be right back.
Story. Some people watch fights. We study them.
From the prelim lights to the title fight glow, every round got a lesson if you're watching it slow. Not chasing hot takes, we're chasing what's true. Finding diamonds in the regional scene before they break through. We respect every style, every path, every craft. Break and take frame by frame while the rest just react. No gimmicks, just rhythm, every breakdown precise. Where the numbers meet the nuance, that's the edge, that's the price.
Tap that. Tap that. Where the take meets the talk. Tap that. Where them underdog spark. Tap that. Every fighter got a voice. Tap that. Every fan gets a choice. Welcome to the Tap That MMA podcast. Tap that. MMA our podcast. Where the take meets the talk.
That was great timing. I'm going to grab some peanuts. Now I can continue. On to the co-main event. Diego Ferreira and Billy Quarantillo in a lightweight fight. I have to say, the main event's cool. There's been a pretty underwhelming slew of headlining fights on some of these fight nights. Talked about it last week in particular. They're in Serbia. I'm afraid I'm just going to keep eating these peanuts now. Alright. Now, Billy Q was once a guy I liked in particular in underdog spots. I feel like that was reliable there, and I feel like it at some point the momentum shifted. Because I feel like not long ago. I feel like not long ago I would have jumped at this chance. But now he's lost 3 of his last 4 fights, and I could really like the Alexander Hernandez fight. That was satisfying to get the decision win over Damon Jackson. Now it's just so hard to tell with Alexander Hernandez. Like, that's a very inconsistent dude. The wins have been so few and far apart for Billy Q. I got a little tricked, I suppose, by like maybe some of those early wins. The fact that, you know, his last 2 wins are Alexander Hernandez and Damon Jackson. And I could get back, like, when you lose and get knocked out by Edson Barboza, that's one very easily forgivable thing, especially, like, that was about 3 years ago. Over 3 years ago. Oh. Let's put, like, a handful of dust in my mouth. But the Cubs want, like, and losing Edson Barboza and Yusuf Zalal, very easy to get over. The loss to Cub Swanson was disappointing. And now his most recent fight in the UFC was that loss to Cub Swanson. He should have come out with that win. And that was December of 2024. It's been quite a while since Billy Quarantillo has fought. Jesus. Now, Diego is old, almost 40, and has lost 2 in a row. Lost, 7 or 5 of his last 7 fights. But Benil Dariush, Gregor Gillespie, Mateusz Gamrot, Grant Dawson, and Alexander Hernandez. And, like, the Hernandez loss, and, like, the more I think about it, I'm kind of feeling Billy Q in that circumstance. But, like, I don't want to get tricked by he has a win over Alexander Hernandez and he has a knockout loss to Alexander Hernandez, because Alexander Hernandez is wildly unpredictable. I don't want to be swayed by that. But what if this fight turns into something like the Mateusz Rebecki fight, like, then Diego Ferreira deserves to be a favorite of this sort. I think, like, Billy Q is not, like, that loss against Cub Swanson in 2024, like, was not a good look, and it was not encouraging, and it put a different light on a lot of those different fights, you know, like I said, I liked him in those underdog spots, but, like, the momentum of that really went away. Oh. Because the gap between him, Barboza at the time, and Yusuf Zalal was quite apparent. So, like, Ferreira by knockout, I think makes the most sense. Let's see here. Yeah, Ferreira by knockout is plus 220. Ferreira by decision is plus 300. But keep in mind, Billy Quarantillo by knockout is plus 255. I just think the momentum is somehow more with the guy that's almost 40. I just have to have these peanuts because it's late at night on Friday, and it's taking energy to get back to doing picks episodes after this move. We're now to the main event. Lightweight matchup between Mateusz Gamrot and Killian Salkilde. Salkilde was like minus 142, I think, to start the week. It's down a little bit to minus 130. Minus 132. Gamrot the plus 112 underdog, so I suppose he was taking money. Here's the thing. Gamrot is just a guy where you know what you're going to get. You know what a winning performance looks like for Mateusz Gamrot. It looks like, I mean, if you really have the grappling advantage, he can work for the submission. The one knockout, since he fought Diego Ferreira, December of 2021, was that injury that Fazayev had. Yeah, you know what a winning performance for Mateusz Gamrot looks like is, not looking pretty in the striking and getting a lot of takedowns, not holding people down for too long, needing to get a high volume of them. A lot of the time, you're just trying to keep pace with the strikes. We're not looking that good from there. Trying to get it back down to the ground, and eventually, taking a decision. I think that Salkilde better be in good condition to, there's going to be a 5-round fight to, keep his composure and keep, gas left in the tank if you're going to be defending a lot of takedowns. But I also think Killian is a very well-rounded fighter that is going to pose a danger to Mateusz on the when standing up. But I think he'll be very capable of handling himself. Mateusz Gamrot has gotten some good wins, but like Killian Salkilde really could ascend very high in the lightweight division. Gamrot's always had this ceiling. I don't think he beat. Let's see. What fight am I thinking of? I'm thinking of that. Zayev. It was the Arman fight. I didn't think he beat Arman. He gets knocked down, and he gets put in danger standing up against these dangerous dudes in these main events, and he's still gotten the win somehow just off the takedown volume. He's very good at that, but Salkilde has just looked like an absolute murderer. The way he finished Nasrat Haqparast was shocking to me. I really thought Nasrat was going to be a decently live dog, but that's just a moment when you learn that like someone is the real deal, and that was what was up with Killian. I mean, he's at decision wins with 79 strikes and 8 takedowns against Ashmos. He looks scary, and some of his the neck crank on Jamie Malarkey was nasty. But even in the older age and the mileage of Beneil Dariush, being able to pass that test the last time out, just back in May, and knocking him out in the first round, that already tells you that someone has a certain level of competence. Like, I don't think Beneil is so far gone from a competitive stage that, like, the win over him doesn't mean a lot for Killian Salkild. And just that, like, I think he's going to prove very difficult to take down and keep down. And Mateusz Gamrot is going to have to deal with the dynamic qualities of Killian Salkild. And I eventually, over the course of 5 rounds, I don't see it going well for him. I got him earlier in the week in like the minus 140s, but minus 132, I love. And like method of victory, I think is tough. Like that just depends like on some things we don't necessarily know yet. Like how many takedowns will there be? Like will Mateusz get knocked down but be able to survive just a little bit and make things harder on Killian? And I think method of victory, like knockout makes the most sense because like if things aren't there, if Mateusz isn't able to get off like any of the more dominant parts of his game, the opportunities for a finish will be there. And like, I think Killian has shown very like he's more likely to convert on those. Game by knockout is plus 250. I would go there, or maybe not inside the distance. I don't think you have to do that. Knockout or decision would be kind of good, but like I'm happy to do knockout plus what I said 250, and money line minus 132 is plenty good there. So that's the UFC. Want to check and see who won on the main event of PFL, and then watch it later tonight here. Never should have brought these peanuts in here. All right. I posted my DFS plays on Instagram as well. Follow me on Instagram at RotoBrady MMA. It's been scrolling across the screen the whole time. Yeah, it feels good to make picks again. Here, like for MVPW, look that up, do I? Okay. Look it up on Tapology then. Here we go. Johnson versus Thorsland happening Saturday at 8 p.m. I ended up going Cherneka Johnson. I got her at like minus 115. She's minus 135 now. In the undisputed female bantamweight title fight against 24-0 Dina Thorsland. That was a tough one for me to arrive at. But it was, I mean, especially more appealing when it was essentially pick 'em. But, maybe I like Dina more at this number, obviously. But I think, like Cherneka Johnson in her first win over Nina Hughes, I thought it was absolutely ridiculous. I didn't think she won that fight, but then she came back and finished her when they had the rematch, and it's been a good string of wins since then. Became the undisputed female bantamweight champion. The only other losses are to Shannon O'Connell and Ellie Scottney. Dina Thorsland, I just think like with her experience that she has up to this point, it does just leave like a little bit to be desired. I mean, she's won. I mean, she's won plenty of hardware, but at minus 115. I think Cherneka still deserved that like benefit of the doubt. Since it's been a while since she's lost, and it was Ellie Scottney. So I do with that one. I think I bet on Desley Robinson versus Tamara Thibault. I think I'd like Desley Robinson by decision here. Um, like Tamara does have an impressive amateur pedigree though, but Desley Robinson, even at 12-3 as a pro, like she's been very active over the last couple of years and has is the current IBF world and WBO world female middleweight champion. I didn't bet on Metcalf versus Amanda Galley. Here, I'll give one pick here for the heavyweight fight and then one for the 108-pound women's fight because I love seeing it. Daniel Perro out of Cuba, nicknamed The Fear. That's cool. 13-0 as a pro, 26 years old. Was a participant in the 2020 Tokyo Olympics. Been a part of MVP prospects. Aleem Whitfield, nicknamed The Hammer. It's pretty cool. 10-1, 36 years old. And bare knuckle has been knocked out in all of his fights. He's lost 2 of his last 3 and got knocked out in the second round in 2 BKFC fights. He's coming off a unanimous decision win over Julian Gomez in a 6-round fight at Boxing Extravaganza. I love that name. But I think Perro is going to finish him. I think he's going to probably knock him out within, let's see, in this, what is a 10-round fight. I think he finishes him within the first 3 rounds. And now the women's 108-pound fight. Between 1-0, Saray Brownell and Sheila Moreno at 5-0-1. Saray, 20 years old, has a unanimous decision win in her professional debut. Moreno, 5-0-1, 22 years old. I mean, very limited. I think like if you made it to 5-1, like I don't know. In this one, I would say Moreno by decision. Ashley Felix, who was Saray's first win, was 7-4 and 21 years old. A better opponent than I thought it would be. But who is 4-9-1 for 5-2-3? She had a split draw with Ana Guerrero's 2-2. I don't know. Maybe I actually like Saray by decision. 1-0, 20 years old. She looks like a killer. Let's go Saray by decision. One Samurai is mostly having kickboxing as part of their kickboxing tournaments. They got Kita Yamakita versus Kayoru Tenue in a flyweight fight in MMA. It's gonna be just talk about the MMA here a little bit. Fun 1258. Yeah, Yamakita is the -425 favorite. 12-1 as a pro. 30 years old. He's ranked 67th in the world right now on Tapology. Ultimately 5-1 in 1. Wins over Lita Adewang, Yusuke Saruta, Jeremy Miyado. Only professional loss is by decision of Bokang Masunyane. That says a lot right there. If you don't know why, go look into Bokang. But 11-4 is Kayoru. All right. 24 years old. When was his last weigh-in? His last weigh-in was at Shooto at 115 pounds. I respect very much that he was a Shudo strawweight champion. I love that. I love that there's fights happening at men's 115 pounds. Um, did very well amateur in Japan, amateur Shudo as well. The one decision loss to Joe Arai. That's a recognizable name. It was 16, 12, and 2 at the time. I think, like, this is the way that MMA works in Japan. Is like 24 years old, like the fights that he's already had and what he's already accomplished. Like, this guy could go on to be a fixture in different promotions for the next 16 years of his life. But Yamakita, what he's accomplished what he's accomplished through his whole career in Pancrase, where he was a Pancrase champion at strawweight, love to see it. But again, like, your only pro loss is to Bokang. You've beaten Jeremy Miyato in one. You haven't lost since your debut against Bokang in one. Yamakita deserves to be that much of a favorite. Hmm. Yamamoto, 6-3 at featherweight. Ryo Hirayama, 4-1. Hirayama is the -140 favorite, actually. Hirayama, 27 years old, 0-1 and 1, 4-0 in Fighting Nexus. The opponents there 3-6, 0-3, 2-1, and 4-4. Then lost to 3-1 Viet Ando at one Friday fights 133. Yamamoto, 28 years old, 0-1 and 1, 0-1 in RIZIN. I didn't like that he was in RIZIN though. And not necessarily like winning records against the opponents he's beaten, but like he's been in Deep, he's been in RIZIN, he's been in one, he's been in Pancrase. And those opponents were at least like quite experienced. As an underdog here, give me the 6-3 Yamamoto against Ryo Hirayama. Subaru Mori, 6-0 as a pro against Yasuki Sada, who's actually fighting out of Australia. Mori's the -400 favorite. That sounds about right. Mori, crazy haircut, and look, he looks like a kung fu movie villain, honestly. 23 years old. 4 of his 6 pro wins are inside the distance. He was 4-0 in Fighting Nexus, coming off beating the 23, 12, and 4 Yuta Watanabe, April of 2026, so this year. Last 4 wins have been inside the distance. 3 submissions, 1 knockout. Yasuki Sato, 2-1. Fighting in Eternal MMA, but fought in Eternal and amateur. I love seeing that continuity from people from the amateur to pro levels of different good feeder promotions. But he was knocked out by 0-0 Ron Dang, June of 2025. And he was a win over 0-0 Liam Brewster in his pro debut, and 1-1 Maximilian Leicester Williams in his last fight, Eternal MMA 106, June of this year. Yeah, I like more what Mori has. I mean, like the last win against Yuta Watanabe, I think is quite telling. I think it erases so much of what like the uncertainty that you would see in his pro career leading up to that, when so many opponents had like the 2 opponents he fought before Watanabe had a combined record of 4-11 but the win over Watanabe is really validating. And so I think Mori inside the distance over Yusuke Sato makes the most sense. And then I'll talk about one more of them because I think there's only one more MMA fight. Oh no. That was all 3 MMA fights. That's happening in one right now, or in a few hours actually. Zova boxing, I couldn't take myself to do much. I couldn't find odds for Callum Walsh on DraftKings early in the week when I was actually like doing this. So, I think I might have included Aaron McKenna over Edinosa Oliha in for the IBF World Middleweight title. I just wasn't seeing many odds early in the week when I was actually looking to bet these. I would think like Patrick O'Connor is at 200 pounds going to be a favorite there. Callum Walsh just always ends up being a ridiculously high favorite, and against 21-4-3 Tyler Denny, I would expect that again. And Sam Hickey, like I think there's room for always for like a careful parlay on Zuffa boxing. Because the fights are higher profile now naturally. But there is like more competitive balance you see. Like, you don't see as many crazy fights. You have to be careful. Like, there's going to be like, it always feels like there's a bigger upset that's always can happen on a Zuffa boxing card. So, I think like you just try to find someone with a more reasonable number that you can put in there so that you don't have to do 10 legs for it to be like plus 143 and you can do well on Zuffa boxing, but trying to pick a lot of outcomes correctly, I feel is a bit of a trap. God. I've eaten so many peanuts. Let's see what's next. So I'll give a few teaser picks for RIZIN. Let me pull up the odds real quick. There's a few key ones I like. I love Tsuyoshi Shidario. Why is this? July 24th. Oh, upcoming, duh. Yeah. No odds released yet. Well, they're finally giving us a little bit more heavyweight action. It's a shame that they haven't gotten to follow through on the whole Ryan Bader will fight the winner of the heavyweight Grand Prix thing. But King Common Lee is going to be on this card. Isaac Timarov is on this card against Joji Godo. Pachi Mix is in the co-main event. Cleaver Koike is fighting Kiyoma Akimoto in the main event. So you got some real fixtures here. Yuki Ito is on this card as well. But I love that they're bringing the heavyweight action back here. Because we got Mikiyu Ueda against King Edipolo, and then Tsuyoshi Sudario against Ryu Sakai. Tsuyoshi Sudario, a lot of times when he's in these fights, like, I end up getting bummed out because I want the former sumo wrestler to succeed. I want King Edipolo to succeed too. I like Edipolo and Tsuyoshi Sudario to get the wins in RIZIN. Currently, there's only 10 fights on the card. But before the Contender Series and before RIZIN, because RIZIN starts at like Tuesday at midnight, just wanted to give those thoughts about that. I'm excited to watch it. I love when like a Cleaver Koike RIZIN card like has a very RIZIN feel to it, and two of the heavyweight freak shows, essentially, are on this card, and Ryo Sakai, like, can make things very sweaty. Like, if you have any piece of Tsuyoshi. King Edipolo, 25 years old. How tall is he? 6'8"? Yeah, and he's coming off a knockout of Ryo Sakai at RIZIN 50 back in March of 2025. That was only his second pro fight, naturally. Yeah, so I wanted to give those early thoughts on RIZIN. I hope to put out something specific for RIZIN because it's always a special one for me. I'm getting peanut, yeah, all over. And then with the Contender Series, I've only been going on an hour and a half. It's not that bad for everything I've talked about. Yeah, I hope to put out something more, specific and focused on the Contender Series of RIZIN before they happen. Now, a couple of quick thoughts. Anthony Went is a scary looking dude at heavyweight. 3-0 in Fury. But he is fighting Bad Matt Adams, who I was supposed to have on this podcast multiple times, and we have lost contact. But Matt Adams, 3-1 in LFA, 3-1 in Ohio Combat League, a promotion close to my heart. Has that bare knuckle loss to Juan Adams. But beating Ben Wonder, beating Quentin Campbell, Quentin Campbell, tough dude, just like, now 1-6 as a pro after that fight with Matt Adams. But the fight with Arslan Bilalev, that's a fight Matt Adams was really, upset with. Arslan, looked fantastic in that fight in his own right. Matt Adams has also fought Cameron Kenzig. That was his first pro loss in his debut. But, I think Matt Adams in his time in LFA has looked really good. I respect that he got in there in the bare knuckle arena with a UFC veteran and Juan Adams, a PFL veteran as well. And yeah, I think that Anthony Went, he's scary looking, but he's not that tall. I do really appreciate the win. He became the Fury heavyweight champion. So I don't know. I haven't seen the actual odds on this fight yet. If Went is the favorite, I could see me going Matt Adams as a moneyline underdog, but I could see going with whoever's the underdog in this fight. It's heavyweight. Plus, Anthony Went is a win next XFC Young Guns. But a lot of Fury FC, and to be a champion of a promotion like that speaks a lot, speaks volumes about the kind of wins you're capable of getting. So, that was one thought on the Contender Series. And then Bilal Hassan is fighting on the Contender Series. At flyweight, that guy is, I don't know what's taking this long. You could very well justify not having, that guy go through the Contender Series at all. But 8-0 at his age, and I think they just want to, give him a stage on the Contender Series. He's fighting Mridul Sakia out of India, and it just feels like someone that they're trying to get Bilal to mess up on the Contender Series. Get a win in really impressive fashion. So, the biggest fighter on this card to watch is Bilal Hassan. Quite possibly the best prospect in the game, not in the UFC. So there we go. Those are picks for the UFC. That's thoughts about RIZIN and one, and my points about the PFL earlier, boxing. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of the Tap That MMA podcast. I got more guests coming on the show tomorrow. I got a guest coming on the show Sunday. More of those interlude episodes on the calendar. So, hey, have yourselves a great week. Thanks for listening. Enjoy these fights, and peace.